Hey guys, Julian here from Ripehouse. Thanks for clicking on this video. If you haven't already, we have a new podcast called the No BS Property Investing Podcast. Make sure you go check it out and give it a listen. Now back to the video. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And today's question we've got from one of our followers is, I want to invest and upgrade the family home. Should we just buy a new home and rent out our old one? So this is, I guess, a common scenario that a lot of people go through where they've got an existing home that they're living in, the family home. They may have outgrown it, or they may want to get a newer, more modern home. And they're debating whether they sell that property and use those funds to go out and purchase their new home and then maybe buy another investment property to replace that one. Or they keep the family home, they then go out there and then turn that into an investment. They can then go out there and buy their new home. So I thought what would be helpful for today, we actually run through the numbers on the property in terms of what it's going to cost, the pros and cons of going down that pathway, and help people ideally make the right decision when we get to that part. So we get to the first assumption. So I guess what we're assuming here, the current house is worth $1.2 million. We've got a $200,000 loan on that property. The household income's around $325,000 combined, so we're just going to assume our income rate's at about that 37% mark. And the new home we want to buy is a $2 million asset. So scenario number one is we keep the existing. So on that $200,000 mortgage that we have on the existing home, let's just assume that we're going to roll it over to an investment loan. And again, we're being pretty, I guess, conservative here, where we're just going to say that's an investment loan now. We're getting a 6% rate. We'll definitely be able to get a better rate than that, but let's just make this for worst case scenario. So here we're getting $12,000 of interest that we're paying. We've got our other running costs, again, being quite conservative here. So this is your rates, water, insurance, etc. at $8,000. So our total gross costs are $20,000 to hold that asset. We've then got our rent coming through. Let's assume that we're at a 3.5% rental yield, given it's a $1.2 million asset. So we're bringing in $42,000 of rental income. So our gross profit and loss is $22,000 profit. Now, don't forget that we've made profit on this. So now it's income. When we've got income, we've got to pay tax on it. So the tax payable on that is going to be a bit over $8,000. So the money we've actually received from this purchase is just under $14,000 per year. Now, on that, where we're keeping the existing, we're then going to go out there and we need to buy our new property. So we're buying a new property for $2 million. Now, we're buying this property essentially as full debt. We're using the equity in the existing home to act as the deposit and cover our buying costs, etc. So we're going principal and interest. We've now bought, because it's a $2 million property, we're assuming 5% of buying costs. So we actually need to take out a $2.1 million loan to cover all those buying costs. We're going to be really conservative here, and we're going to say instead of a 6% interest rate, we're getting a 5.5 because it's owner occupied and it's on P&I. So our repayments per month on a principal and interest loan on this new home we're buying a $2 million property that we're taking out a $2.1 million loan, is going to be $12,000 a month. Now, the affordability on that is a completely separate issue, because that's a lot of money to be paying for your mortgage each year. But let's just bypass this. We just want to look at the raw numbers for today. We're then going to assume, again, $8K of running costs, again, being pretty conservative. We're just going to keep it the same value of the previous one, even though it's likely to be a little bit more because it's a more expensive property. So our total cost for running the primary place of residence is $152,000. We then minus our profit we've made on the old property, which is now just under $14,000. So our total holding costs for the two properties are just under $140,000, $138.1. And our total loans across the two properties is $2.3 million. So that's just a scenario number one. When we get into scenario two, so this is about selling the property and then buying two properties. And when we're talking about buying two, we're going to go out, buy our $2 million home, and we're going to replace the investment property. We're going to keep the values exactly the same to make this a fair comparison. So we sell the existing property for $1.2 million. We're going to assume that there's 4% of closing costs to sell the property. So all the fees, again, we might be a little bit less than that. We again want it to be a conservative appraisal here. So we sell for 1.2. We take out our closing costs. We take out our loan. We're then left with $952,000 of cash in hand to then go out and buy our new property. Now, we still need to pay our buying costs in this scenario. So our $2 million house is still going to cost us 2.1. So we're going to need to take out a $1.148 million loan. Our P&I costs at a 5.5% rate on that 1.148 is going to be $78,000 per year. We've then got our other costs, so that's our rates, water, insurances, etc., is $8,000. So our total holding cost is $86,000 per annum, and our loans are going to be at $2.4 million. And I'll get to that total loan figure in a moment. We then buy the second property. So this is going to be a new investment. So we're going to buy a $1.2 million property. But what we're going to do here, because we want to, improve our tax deductions, because understanding that when we've got a home that we're living in, the debt that sits on that primary place of residence is all non-deductible debt. Whereas if we go buy an investment property, that's all deductible debt. So that helps us bring down our taxable income. Now, in that first scenario, that all we had as deductible debt was $200,000. In this new scenario, we're going to buy this $1.2 million property. We're also going to work in our buying costs, so stamp duty, etc., is all going to be worked into the loan. So we're going to buy a $1.2 million property, but we're going to take on essentially a $1.26 million loan. And again, we're going to assume this is on interest only, and we're going to be really conservative, bump up the rate by 0.5%. The discrepancy wouldn't be normally that big of a variance, but we'll do that. We've got $75.6K in terms of running that property. We've then got our other holding costs of $8K. Again, we wanted to keep this normal, so we've kept that there as well. Our total costs now are at $83.6K across the two properties. Again, we're going to assume the same amount of rent we're getting on this property versus the original family home, $42,000. So our gross profit and loss is $41.6K on this asset, but this is where it starts to swing for us. So we're going to get a tax deduction because of that. We're running at a loss. We're able to negatively gear that property. We're going to be getting a $15.4K tax saving. This is also running on the assumption that there's no depreciable items on this property as well. So we're just keeping this as plain vanilla as possibly we can. So our total actual running cost for that property is $26.2K actual cost for just the investment. So in conclusion, we're going to do a full review here. So in scenario one, we're turning the family home into an investment property, and we're going to go out there and buy a new family home. Now, the total holding costs here is going to be very different. And the reason for that is, in this first scenario, we only have $200,000 of tax deductible debt, which is sitting in the existing family home. Everything that comes into play on the new family home is all non-deductible debt. So we can see here our holding costs for the two properties come to $138,000.14,000. Now, if we go to scenario two, this is where we sell our current family home. We then go and use those proceeds to buy the new family home. And then once that's been completed, we use the equity in the new family home to buy the next investment. So our total holding costs in that scenario is $112.2K. Now, in terms of the difference here, our total cash flow difference per annum, and this is a really important one, we get nearly an extra $26,000 cash in our hand by being in scenario two. And the reason for that is, how is our debt sitting? Are we all in the good debt, or are we all in the bad debt? And in the first scenario, most of our debt is sitting in the bad debt, whereas we want it sitting in the good debt, which is what scenario two opens. Now, one thing we need to keep in mind is that's our difference of cash flow. Our pre-tax income, because obviously when you're paying money out of pocket, you're paying tax on that. So it's actually taking out, the difference is $41,000 of the combined salaries here is a difference. The big key thing is here, you're structured better. You can also control the narrative better in terms of the new investment. The old family home, which you're turning into an investment, that might not be in the best location to perform right now. It might have been the best place to suit your lifestyle, but in terms of getting you the best growth, that might not be the best asset of where you want to be. So you get to control the narrative of where your investment is. It might be in a much better performing market by buying in a different market. And the other thing to keep in mind in this model here, your servicing will be far, far better to help you with not only maybe this investment, you might be able to buy multiple investments, because the way the bank is servicing this is you've got a much more modest debt against your family home, because the way they're going to run your servicing is they're going to look at all your debts and liabilities. they have a minimum amount of what is expected for your monthly living expenses. If you've got a home that's at full debt sitting at 2.1, they are servicing that as this is something that's going to come out of your day-to-day costs of living. You can't go out there and afford another property because each and every month you've got to front up with that $12,000. Where in this second scenario, you've got far less of repayments to make. And what the bank can then go, well, hang on, he's got some serviceability left over here. With that serviceability, he's then able to buy another investment property. The rental income from that investment property is also going to add to your servicing. So potentially your ability to hold more amounts of assets are going to be stronger as well, which the ultimate goal with property investing is we want to be obviously in good locations, but it's the amount of investments total value. So if we could have $2 million worth of investments as opposed to 1.2, we know as time goes on, if we assume they're getting similar growth rates, the person with $2 million worth of assets is going to get further ahead. So in this scenarios here, the second one is going to put us in a position not only that's going to be better for cash flow, but better to be able to hold more assets moving forward. But I'd love to know if anybody has any further questions of that. Potentially you're in this position right now and you're thinking about which way to go. Keeping in mind as well, when you sell your old family home, there is, assuming that it was your family home for that entire period and it wasn't a rental before, without going down that rabbit hole, there's not going to be that capital gains tax to pay. If you move out of that family home and you have the new family home, you can only claim the CGT exemption on one property at any given time. So that's the other reason why those big benefits lay by selling the home and making sure you use your debt in the correct way. But thanks for watching today's video. Make sure, if you haven't already, leave a comment of your thoughts on this. Hit that subscribe button. And if you haven't already, make sure you're listening to our No BS Property Investing podcast. And we'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now.